All right. You know what it is? You know who it is? We're back with another episode of the Skinny Boy Says podcast. Today I got an epic person on, Kyle Traynor of Elite Vitality. He's part of, or he is the owner and operator of the business class that I've been taking, that I've been talking about. I'm really excited to kind of talk about this because this is a good time to have this conversation during all this, crazy pandemic stuff and just with everything that's going on. And I've learned a ton from his program, and I've taken it and made it into some mild success within what I'm doing. And it's brought a lot of value, a lot of change, a lot of perspective into my view. So, Kyle, give a brief background on yourself, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Well, firstly, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, no
It's an
problem.
honor.
Thank you.
And yeah, thanks for the wrap up. I mean, I, I wouldn't say I'm epic. I mean, I'm just like I'm pretty much an everyday guy who over a long period of time has just put in consistent work. And as I said, we're pretty lucky to be in a position now where we can take our own, I guess, wisdom from the experiences we've had, from the learnings that we've acquired across the journey. And what we're trying to do is now just pay it forward, and the way we do that is through business consulting. Really, like that's how we view our business now, is that we try to consult with fitness business owners. So everyone from trainers to physiotherapists, chiropractors,
Mhm.
osteos, gym owners. We just consult, and really we've put together a program that we believe combines education and consulting to provide a top-notch service that really gets the result that people are looking for. Um, and a lot of that is not just obviously earning a lot of money, but finding leverage, being able to create time in their business, and understand the foundations that will give them sustainable success. And I think that's probably where we put our focus, right? Is sustainable success rather than just
Yeah.
rapid growth. Um, but yeah, so a bit of a background on me, man. Like, I was a PT myself. I've been in business now. I've had my own business, 8 years. I was studying at university. Started off studying marketing. Funnily enough,
Mhm.
hated it. And then went and studied exercise science, but got my PT cert at the same time, and really opened my business straight away. And then eventually dropped out of uni again. For some reason, I just think I don't do well with people telling me what to do.
Yeah, I think a lot of people. I
Um,
think that's obviously like an entrepreneurial thing. Like it's just something that like that's why we become entrepreneurs.
yeah, I mean, like I love learning, man. Like, don't get me wrong, I do so much of it, but when somebody's telling me what I have to learn, like I don't know whether it's them telling me or whether it's as soon as I find one little subject that I don't want to learn, I just don't really get into it too much. A lot of what I learn now is the stuff that I want to read. If I'm reading a book and I don't like it, I won't finish it. And these kind of things. But yeah, so and then obviously got into business and grew a pretty successful PT business, both online and to have having a team of seven, across Victoria, which is a state here in Australia. And and then from there, I really did have a passion for business. Like I really do love business. Like it's a big passion of mine. I love the strategy side of it. I love that some things are going to work for you and they're not going to work for me. And that's the biggest challenge, is that in business, you have to find what's authentic to you, because that's what actually starts to get you the most amount of output. And we can talk about output in many ways. We could talk about revenue, we could talk about impact, we could talk about all of these different things. But if you really want to have the maximal amount of output that you want in business, you really got to find your authentic brand, and then be able to grow that brand strategically. And to me, that's what business is. It's about pushing the brand up. It's about pushing our costs down. So making sure that our margins are in a really good spot. And then how can I build my brand from here on in? And again, if that brand's not authentic to you, then naturally it's unsustainable, because trying to hold up something that's not authentic to you, eventually, that can feel, it can break you a little bit. And I
It's a
think so.
burden.
Yeah, man, 100%. So I think, that's the part of business that I really love. I love learning about it. So I actually got faced with a bit of a decision, man. It's like, do I continue this coaching business, right? Because I was still coaching, not as much as what I was in my early days, but um, I had to kind of really make a decision. Is this really what I want to do? And that's a hard thing to do because I'm making good money, right? And I'm doing a good job, and my team's doing a good job, and we're doing it really well. And then you got to make a decision. And the decision I had to make was, is this really what lights my fire anymore? And the
Is this in
reality
terms of
was it
personal
wasn't.
training or the business stuff?
The personal training
Yeah.
business, like, and it's not that I didn't love it, right? And I still do love it. I still train myself. It's just that I really did love the business side.
Hmm.
And like, it's like, okay, do I really have to, um, where do I want to go with this? Where do I eventually, this is my career. I'll always love fitness, man. Like, it's built into me. It's
Yeah.
all I've ever known. Um, from sport to training itself. It'll always be a big part of my life. But as a career, um, I still did love it. Like, it's not like I was ever going to go into accounting or anything like that. Um, but what the decision I had to make was, okay, I really love the business side of it. And, we teach fitness businesses. I probably wouldn't go into any other type of business, to be honest,
Mhm.
because it's just, again, it's not where my passion lies. But, I was faced with a decision. And ended up just making the decision that I'm going to scale back my company and build a new one. And then that's where I've gotten to now. So we're 3 years into this new company, and we're absolutely loving it. We get to have a pretty large impact on the industry, and we get to work with some amazing people continuously, and work with them on helping them reach their potential and building their dream business, which is really what we try to focus on. We
Yeah.
again we want people to reach their potential, and we want people to be able to have a business that they're proud of, not just try to just fall into what everybody else is doing, but truly create something that's authentic to them.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, you know, going through it, I wouldn't say skeptical at first, but I was someone who, I heard about you before, and I heard about you guys for a while because I've been a huge fan of like Jordan's, and Prescript. So it's something that I always followed, and like heard a lot of your stuff. I've seen your stuff. I actually may have inquired a couple years ago. I don't remember about something, but you know, taking that step and actually talking to you, and then kind of like just hearing you talk about it, and then reading the stuff, and just kind of talking to some people who have done it was just kind of like the tipping point for me. And like, for me, it was something, I wanted to make that commitment for myself, and kind of hearing the way that you guys go about it was perfect. And like, I don't regret a single thing, like joining with you guys and learning from you, and the way you guys set everything up. And, like you were mentioning a couple minutes ago, but like the group of people, for going in, I didn't know really what to expect, or who would, I'd be involved with, or how it would be. But like, I made a couple awesome friends. Jeremy was in my group. Alex is someone who's I already know, but it was in my group. Mike, all the guys in there were like awesome people, and I've built relationships with them now, and it's kind of just like this group of dudes that I get to go and network with. And there's PTs, there's Kairos, there's just regular trainers, there's people who haven't even opened a business yet,
Yeah.
and they're all just putting this together and learning how to start or expand, or take their business to the next level, which has been awesome. And like I said, learning from you guys has been awesome. What I know we kind of mentioned it, but what was like the biggest reason you did start Elite Vitality in terms of the mastery program and like the business side of things?
So Elite Vitality was still actually my old business name.
Okay, so it was your
So
personal training
yeah,
business.
yeah. Funnily enough, it was
Okay.
like, because I still had a brand, right? So
Yeah,
what I had to do is, I had, once I made that transition, I had to fight hell for leather to change what that brand was perceived as, which
yeah,
was extremely hard, and difficult. But it's a good challenge. I mean, building a brand, we built a brand up, and then to change that and build one again is an extremely tough challenge. But it's something that, again, it's something that I truly do love to do. So I guess the tipping point was like, I was at a point where you would have people inquire, and trainers, and not so much therapists and clinicians, and that's kind of be an evolution over time. But you would have trainers reach out, and ask for mentoring, and be asking questions, and I'm already mentoring my own team, so there was a lot of that going on already. It just wasn't as professional. It was more like and as structured in a sense. And what I actually noticed, right, was that there was a few different models that I seen that were happening. There was a few different models that we actually tried at the start, but what I really found a passion in was working through psychologically the barriers that people hold. And something that you said before was like, you made that commitment to yourself. And
Yeah.
honestly, that's the biggest part. Like, not enough people are willing to get in the arena. Like, that's honestly, that's why 90% fail, right? Because they're just not willing to do what it takes. They're not willing to put themselves in a vulnerable position. Making the decision is the hardest part. But once you're in it, right? Like, and you would have seen this. It's like, you make it, at the time of the decision, you're like, oh God, I don't know, and like you're probably dwindling a bit on it, and you're a little bit skeptical. But you look back now and you're like, fuck, what? Like, I had nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
Like, the biggest thing is like, I'm now doing the work. I now have, I'm in the arena, and I'm loving it, and I'm enjoying the challenges, and that's the biggest challenge, right? And that's what I loved working through people. Working through with people was going, okay, I was doing it on a less professional level, a less structured level. And it was like, okay, the biggest barrier is the psychological barrier, is that, you've got to make sure that you put yourself in a vulnerable position where, you have to make things work. And that's what I really loved about it. And that's what I was working with people on. And then, as I said, I just fell in love with that, like the wins, and seeing people win. And even myself having to think about, how do I actually coach this person to go through um, this scenario, and how do I, what are the different conversations we have to have? What are the things we actually have to do? Because, as a business owner, it's easy for me to rely on myself. We had gotten some success, and that's great, but a lot of that was on the back of me knowing myself, and me, doing what I do.
Mhm.
Instead of, now I have to structure that so that a majority of people can understand it. Um, which, it really did intrigue me. And once it started to kind of, once it's in my head, man, it's like, it was bothering me. It was
Yeah.
bothering me. And I think that was probably the thing, right? Is that, and I just think that people aren't doing it right. Like, I think that there's a lot of this stuff in the industry, from marketers to other programs, that just don't have a business centric focus, right? You've got a lot of people that call themselves business mentors that don't actually teach people the fundamentals of business.
Yeah.
They just mentor them, in a sense, on a psychological level. And there was that as well. So I seen a gap in the market. I thought that we could do it a lot better than what everybody else was. And I mean, that does sound confident, but I really did truly have a belief that things weren't probably getting and this sector of the industry wasn't in the place it needs to be. And I still don't think it is. I still think it's so far away from where it needs to be.
Yeah. Well, I think
Um,
there's also like a merging of the two, because like, and I was talking to Reese about this, that like personal trainers in the past, um, it was viewed as like I guess a stepping stone. No one stayed as a personal trainer, and if you did, it was something that like, you know, you did on the side. It was never like your main career, and there was only a few who were having main careers. So like, there's a lot of people who are trying to make a career now, and having to make something a career or making a business, you need all this stuff that you're teaching. And I think that, as of recent, it's been more and more people are like, I want to do this for a career. And they're like, I don't know this stuff. Whereas before it's like, I don't want to make this a career anyways. So like, why even bother? Just make my money while I can and then get out. So I think that like, that's been that merging that's happening, where more and more people are starting to be like, I want to make this a career. And they're like, I don't know this stuff, so I need to actually go learn it.
100%, right? And you can get pretty busy being good at what you do.
Yeah.
You can. And that's the thing. But a lot of the time, getting busy isn't what people want, right? Like, you have this, and you did say something that was extremely correct, and it was that there is people now that really want to have this as a career for their whole life. Problem is that as a PT, a lot of the time you're coaching people that are working jobs, and
Yeah.
that means you're in a split shift.
Yeah.
And if you're busy, you want to earn money, man. Like, you want to be able to set your life up. You want to be able to put food on the table for your family. You want to be able to You invest in property. You want to be able to travel. You want to be able to do these things. It's not that
Mhm.
want to live a laptop lifestyle and do all that bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I get it, but it's like what people really want is to know that they can actually make this a career while still being able to do the things that they want to do in life. And as I said, you can get pretty busy as a PT, but is the goal really to be busy?
Yeah.
Like our we've got principles, right? Our defensive principle is judgment. If your judgment's great, you make good decisions. You don't make any wrong turns.
Yeah.
And our offensive principle is leverage, right? So leverage, it's obviously um, a biomechanical term, right? It's a physics term. It's about understanding that our inputs, when compared to our outputs, create leverage. So the reason that Usain Bolt is the fastest man on the planet is because his 80% is everybody else's 100,
Yeah.
right? And that's what we're looking at here. Is that most people just think about growth from a monetary perspective. We look at growth. We don't even look at growth. We look at scale,
Yeah.
right? And scale talks about leverage. It's like, we want to know that you're gaining more leverage in your business, which means that, you're getting greater amounts of output from a fixed amount of input. And that's how we look at business. That's our offensive principle for that exact reason. We don't just want people to get busy and have money, because if you're busy and have money, you're not going to be fulfilled. You're not going to be happy, and you'll actually start to resent your career. What we want is we want you to find leverage in your business so this can be super sustainable for you long term and allow you to have the life that you want. And
Yeah.
that's one thing that I went through, man, is that I was, you know, early on in my career, man, I was crushing, but I had no time and I
Yeah.
was always tired. And I started to resent my own training because I was so busy, but I got so attached to this dollar figure and so used to earning this amount of money that I couldn't let it go. And
Yeah.
I didn't know how to gain leverage. I didn't know how to get back more time without having to give that up, or without having to, um, maybe just sacrifice income. Like, and again, my money management skills weren't that great back then. So it's kind of like, because I didn't know how to manage money, I didn't know how to I didn't know how to gain leverage. I didn't even know how to start. So you can see how, like, the industry, it's quite easy to run into a brick wall, and not know how to get around it. And, that can be pretty frustrating. You've got a brick wall in front of you. You're trapped. You don't know where to go. But all you do know is that you love fitness. So you're going to keep doing what you're doing, until it wears you down.
Yeah. And that, I mean, getting into my next question was going to be, what was kind of your biggest hurdle at the beginning, and what was, that thing that kind of almost like, I guess, like stuck you in your tracks at the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, so initially, right? Sorry. For the first 2 years of my career, I didn't really take it serious, man.
Mhm.
Like, my business, like I didn't take it seriously at all. I was pretty young, like I was 19 to 21, and just didn't really put any time and effort into growing the business. I was just invested in my own training. Like I didn't really mind if my business grew, or if I had clients or anything like that. But honestly, as soon as I flicked the switch, man, and really decided to put work into my career and my business, it took off quickly. Within a year, I was booked like to the absolute brim, um, and then it was like, okay, I still want to progress, and I'm really starting to lose time. And probably the absolute hurdle that I faced was, so I had a dream of living in a certain suburb,
Mhm.
so naturally I'm making waves in the industry. I'm building my business, and naturally you start thinking about, okay, well, what does success actually look like to me? And, little did I know back then, but, I had this picture in my head of living in this certain suburb.
Mhm.
No idea why, right? So, little story, I kind of went to this suburb and kind of inquired to live there, in a house. And at the same time, I was like, okay, if I'm going to transition here, I don't really want to be traveling. I'm going to try transition my business across, and, get some clientele here, which means I'll probably have to work at both for a bit, and
Mhm.
eventually I'll be able to transition across and make it work. And anyway, I So I was like, I went to this gym and I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. It's the same franchise gym that I worked at
Mhm.
currently. So they're like, yeah, we're going to cut you a deal. We'll do like, so they were going to charge me 400, I think it was like $450 a week in rent. Um, and which is, so for the other gym, it was 300. So they were only going to charge me 150
Okay.
on top of my 300 instead of the 600.
Yeah.
And anyway, I was like, yeah, cool. That's awesome. I'm happy to do that. As I said, I already had a really kind of, my business was booming at this other place and it was really in a good place.
Yeah.
So then I had to, I went over to the house, signed the lease, and then come back and, a week later and went to sign the contracts at the gym, and they pulled it out from underneath me.
Really.
Right. So instead now they said, no, like we need you. You're going to have to pay double rent. So that was about $600 a week in rent, man, just to the gyms. And then obviously where my new place was in a nice suburb,
Yeah.
and it was costing me a bit. So I think it was about $1,100 before I made any profit,
Hmm.
any money in my pocket. So you could imagine, man, like that's pretty intense.
Yeah. I can imagine.
That was pretty crazy. That's not, it was like at that time it was very stressful. And not only that is, and I actually went ahead with it because I really wanted to live in this area. I really thought that this was what success was to me. And as I said, I'm the kind of guy I back myself in always.
Yeah.
You're not going to see me back down to anyone or anything. Um, and that was a really tough time in my life, man, because not only I actually lost my license about 3 days later.
Really.
Um, so you could imagine I've got it, and these places are about 45 minutes away drive,
Jeez.
about 35 to 45, depending on traffic.
Hmm.
Um, so I've lost my license. I'm living 45 minutes away from my core business. And I'm also have to now try to build a business up at this new gym. So my days really did look like I was, I'd be up at 3:45, 4. I'd have to catch the train,
Hmm.
um, across town, to the other side of town. Start work at 5 a.m. Work till about 12 p.m. Catch the train back, go to this other gym, build my business up from about 2:33 till about 8 at night. Doing like free sessions, getting being around the gym, trying to get to know everyone, these kind of things. And then I'd either catch an Uber home, or I'd walk,
Hmm.
depending on money situation. Um, and I did that for 6 months, man. Like that was pretty tough time. But the thing that it taught me was that I don't want to work that amount of hours
Yeah.
just to have success ever again. Like that's the last thing that I ever want to do. And that's really where I started to think about my business from a leverage standpoint, just from a monetary standpoint, because what it showed me is that I had money coming in, and I was still profiting quite a bit. It's not like I was doing it tough, but it was more about the structure of my weeks, the inability. Like I didn't have a personal life, man. Like
Yeah.
it was really hard for me to have a personal life and to do anything that I enjoyed. I was
Is
still
it kind of like
training.
a guilt thing, or was it more of like a actual just not time to have a personal
Not
life?
time, man. Like I would work Saturdays as well. Because as I said, I felt like my back was against the wall
Yeah.
the whole time. So as I said, it was just a really tough time. But what it did teach me, and that was my biggest struggle, hands down. I got through it, man. I never, there was never a doubt that I wouldn't get through it. But what it did give me, man, is like, I had some mental health problems at the time.
Hmm.
And but it also just taught me a really good lesson. And it was from that day, it was like, okay, I don't, this is my goal now in business is leverage.
Yeah.
I don't want to just be working and um, grinding myself into the floor anymore. I'm happy to work hard, right? But that's not never going to be it. Never just going to be to earn more money. My goal is to have an impact. My goal is to now have leverage. They're my two things that I'm going to keep working on. And that was what that bigger struggle actually taught me. Going through that period was like, taught me a lot of things, taught me two main things. You can't be crushed no matter how bad you think things are going. And at the time, it wasn't at the time that I realized this. It was probably about a year later. And I go, I don't know how you did that, kid, but if you can do that, you're probably going to be okay for the next, whatever you go through from here on in, which, it gave me a lot of confidence. And that I need to focus on leverage in business, which is
Yeah.
something that we're not taught, right? A lot of the time we don't get taught that. We don't get taught to look for leverage in our business. Although we do get taught in many other areas of life to do so.
And I just had a new question here I was typing in, but did you ever at any point kind of like think about, giving that up or no?
Giving up my career, or
Well,
like
like,
just
like
pulling out
giving,
of that situation?
yeah, like just kind of like, I don't know, ever getting there and being like, oh, well, it's maybe I just got to start over and do something else. Cause like, this is just kind of out of my reach at all. Cause, I think, you know, I've had that thought before in terms of like when I lost weight, I look back and I'm like, how the hell did you do it? Like, like it was just kind of like you look back and you're like, how did you even do that? And you're at some point now you're like, you look back and you're just like, that is impressive to say the least. And you kind of just look at it and you just think back like, I didn't even like when I, and this isn't the same, but like when I did lose a bunch of weight, I look back now and I'm like, that was impressive that I did it. And there was like some points where I was like, oh, should I even continue to do it? And like, I'm sure there were some days where you're waking up at 3 and you're like, oh, is this client really going to be worth it? Or is like this train ride really worth it? I'm just curious as to what you were thinking through that whole process.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, man. I think like a lot of it comes down to, for me, and we all go through doubt, right? Like it's not that it doesn't exist. There was times where I was like, of course I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
There was times where I was like, fuck, I don't want to get up at
Yeah.
3:45 a.m. and catch the train for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Like it's, of course, man. Like, but I was the first person at the train station every morning. Like there was nobody in sight. And I just remember sitting there going, this is crazy. Like what the hell? Like, and of course there was times where I was like, fuck, I don't want to do this anymore. But I mean, I think like deep down, I don't really do a lot of the things for the outcome. Like I do a lot of the things because it's who I am. Like
Yeah.
I naturally like to push myself. I naturally like to grow and try to reach my potential. And one thing that I always tell myself is my potential is never reachable.
Yeah.
So if I'm chasing my potential, I'm always chasing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I enjoy that, like that's a big part of me. So there was definitely times where I didn't want to do things, but I've never been one to, and to be honest, I was in a situation I didn't have a choice,
Yeah.
right? Like it's like, what do I do? Just give away this business that's bringing me in $3,000 a week in
Yeah.
revenue, you know, and go get a day job. And to be honest, like I couldn't see myself doing that. I'd
Yeah.
probably be more miserable doing something else, like working in a factory or something like that, than, busting my ass. And I knew that I only had 6 months, right? Like once I got my license back, things would get a bit easier. I'd probably be able to get a few hours back. And I also knew that, my business building skills were there. Like, it really only, I think I transitioned out of that at about out of that gym at about month 6. So it took me about 6 months to build up a clientele base that was steady, that could, allow me to move away from this other gym.
Mhm.
And funny or not, right? Like, understanding that I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life actually gave me the idea to hire someone and put them into that gym,
Oh, really?
and to take over my clientele, right? Because I started to focus on leverage and leverage, forms of leverage. And one of those forms of leverage is labor,
Yeah.
right? Like that's how businesses grow. You can make a profit on somebody else doing work within your company as an employee, which gets you a great amount of output, impact, and revenue, to compared to my own input, which could, I could fix that. So because of the situation I put myself in, I forced myself to learn. And that's a big lesson, right? Like, as it's kind of what I was saying to you at the start, it's like that making the decision is the hardest part. But once you're in there, you learn so much. Like
Yeah.
whether you're making progress in real time, in the present moment, is really not the case, because what you learn throughout these periods of time doesn't go you can't unlearn that,
Yeah.
right? And that's probably, I definitely had doubt. I definitely thought about stopping, at points, but again, for me, it's like I didn't really have a choice.
Yeah.
And it was about who I am. Like there was times where I did, and then I would kick myself into gear again and say, yeah, that's not really who you are.
Yeah.
Deep down, who do you want to be, and what do you want to do? And I actually met my partner now through that time. So there was a lot of
Yeah.
wanting to step up for her and make sure that I didn't drop the baton and do because that was the thing is that I met her and she was someone that I at a very early time in that relationship I did realize that I did love her,
Yeah.
and I wanted to be with her, and that means that, hey, guess what, you need to really step up here, because if you what's
Yeah.
this going to look like in 5 years time if you quit,
Yeah.
and will you regret it? And the chances were that I would. So I pushed through and I got through, and to be honest, it was worth it, man, because I look back now and I think I probably wouldn't be where I am now if I chose to stop during that time.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's an awesome story. I mean, uh, that's what this is about, really, and that's what you're trying to do is try to get more of those stories and help people, avoid the mistakes that you make. And that's one of the biggest things that I talk about is like, for me to invest in something and someone, I love hearing like, and I didn't know that about you, so that's like, I don't know, just it resonates because like you want to be around people and work with people who have had that experience and know what it's like, because it just means their information is that much more valid. You don't want to be talking to someone who's never had to struggle in business, who went to business school and just kind of has never done anything with it. Hearing a story where your back was against the wall and it was basically life or you give up your life at that point, and like to make sure it works is awesome. um
I,
what
I
do
just
you
want to touch on something there quickly, like, and this is something that's really hard to realize in the present moment, but your struggles are just as important as your
yeah,
wins.
yeah,
Like, we don't realize it in the present moment as often as what we probably should, but you get a lot more out of struggle than what you do winning. There's a quote that always sticks with me. It's like, name a good man that's the son of a good man.
yeah,
And although it's not true 100% of the time, it's like what it talks about is that if you can be brought into a world of absolute privilege, and it can cost you integrity. And that's the truth. We go through this, but the one thing I will say is that people that are struggling out there, there's two things. Following that, I had some mental health problems, and I did go see a psychologist, and that was another big part of my career that I probably wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't do that.
yeah,
So it's not about grinding and then just because again, this can cause mental health problems, and I worked myself into the ground and started to experience mental health, and mental health is a really serious problem that we all face at different times in our life and in the world. But the one thing I can say is that going out and actually seeing somebody was the best thing I ever did. It was the scariest thing I ever did. It was so scary. I remember sitting there and absolutely sweating, just
yeah,
freaking out
yeah,
beforehand, but it was the best thing I ever did. And the other thing as well is, obviously, in our toughest times, that's where we learn the most about ourselves. And a lot of the time we just need to, if we can practice mindfulness in that moment and really appreciate our struggles and find peace in them, that's when we can make the most progress.
yeah. And like, I mean, piggybacking off of what you just said from the beginning, one of the coolest quotes I've ever heard. One of my favorite athletes is Conor McGregor. I love the dude just as an athlete. And like, he mentioned in one of his fights or interviews for a fight that like losing affects a fighter, but winning can affect a fighter even worse. Like getting that win and makes you just like puts you
Success
in a
teaches
position where
bad lessons.
yeah, like it's just like you stop and it's just like I won. That's it. I'm there. And it's like that's the work just started there. And to kind of piggyback off the mental health stuff, I think that fitness, and I've been a huge proponent of this, and I've been speaking about this for a while because over the past, this has probably been like one of the hardest years of my life and couple years of my life in terms of stepping away from a business that I started, dealing with a breakup and like dealing with all that stuff, and with having the work that I put in and putting myself in that position where you work yourself into the ground. And like, not many people understand that feeling of it when you've worked your ass off or something and you just keep getting pushed deeper and deeper and deeper, your face into the dirt. But like, going to talk to somebody, having that outlet has changed kind of, and I don't know if I'd be here talking to you, honestly, if I didn't have it, because I was in a bad spot and like I wasn't sure what was wrong, and I was looking outward instead of looking inward to what the problems were. And like, you know, fitness is a culture that's very like bravado, it's very macho, it's very deal with your problems, lift the weight and figure it out later. And like, you know, for long-term success in business and then long-term success in fitness, you have to be able to know and look at the right places and ask the right questions. And if you're not even willing to ask yourself the right questions or challenge yourself, you're never going to be able to challenge anybody else, and you're never going to be able to see growth. So like that's cool. And again, that's another cool thing to hear from you, because like I think that people oftentimes give that stuff away in terms of like, as soon as it happens, and that's it. And they just let it go and they don't talk about it. They don't utilize the information. But like, you know, talking to someone and having that outlet and learning about certain things and learning how to deal with um, being a better person, or just dealing with issues a little bit better, and understanding that like everyone has problems, and that it's okay to have these problems, and like be better at explaining and communicating is just that much better. And it's, you know, it's crazy to hear. And I guess this kind of goes into my next question, because, you know, in terms of having all of this, you know, how has Elite Vitality changed your life from the beginning? And like, you know, obviously it's made you who you are, and it's put you in this position where you're able to talk to the people you're able to talk to, and give knowledge and wisdom and all that stuff. But, you know, for you, coming from your mouth, like how has it changed your life?
I think it's just giving me perspective, man. Like, um, being able to work with people on this kind of level, and just have conversations with people. Like, I can honestly tell you that I think having conversations is it's my favorite thing in the world. And I
Yeah.
think understanding that your words have power, and not just, podcasts and these kind of things, but a lot of the conversations you have behind the scenes, a lot of the ability to just give back and kind of support people on a level that, maybe they haven't had that type of support. I've had people that, I think, like, I look back to some of the people that we've helped over the time, and we had we had somebody join our program at the very start, um, and he just had a lot of issues, that he was dealing with, from his father passed away, and there was just a lot going on, and yeah, man, like there was times like we would he was from Melbourne, right, and we would go out. I would just take him to a park, and we'd just sit there for like 4 hours and chat, and it was just like little things like that. I taught him, I would teach him meditation,
Mm-hmm.
and like, it's not even like, I didn't do that a part of the program. Like, that
Yeah.
was just me. Like, I seen that he was struggling, and, um, little things like that. And, I got a message from him probably about 2, 3 months ago. And, he didn't actually stay in business. And that was from my own kind of recommendation, is that,
Mm-hmm.
you go get yourself a full-time job that you enjoy doing as an exercise physiologist. Um, Take this stress out of your life, because I don't think that you actually want it. I think what
Yeah.
you want is financial stability, and just go enjoy yourself, man. Like, you've got a partner, like, go get yourself into a position that you enjoy, teach yourself how to experience life properly, and be present, and enjoy it. And he come back, like, as I said, this was probably about 2 years ago or a year ago. And he's come back, and like, you get little messages.
Yeah.
And his life's never been in a better situation, purely because he learned how to manage his money, and secondly, he learned how to deal with these issues. Um, and and like, that's super fulfilling for me. Like, whether it's business growth or whatever, it's like the ability that you can just have an impact on someone when you truly listen to them, right? Like, instead of just trying to push your own agenda, and get the best, for what could be maybe your business or your own situation, just the ability to listen, and then have an impact on somebody. And again, that's an amazing thing, man. And that's what I would say, is that it's given me perspective. I think, like, I get to talk to a lot of people,
Yeah.
not just the people that we perceive as important,
Yeah.
right? Like, as I said, I get to rub shoulders with some pretty smart people. But that's not even it, right? It's like, it's everybody else. Like,
Yeah.
it's the amount of people that you get to talk to, and I'll never take that for granted.
Yeah.
I'll always reply. I'll always have a conversation. I'll always do these things because um, you just never know, man. You just never know what kind of impact you could have on somebody's life. And I want to be that guy, man. Like I really do. Like that's a big part of what I like to do, is that I like to to give to people, and to support people, because of what I went through. You know, like it's you know, because I didn't tell anyone.
Yeah.
You know, like I didn't tell anyone for a very very long time. Um, so nobody would have known. So when people reach out, you just never know. And that's a big part of probably how it's changed my life and my perspective, is obviously going through what I did when I transitioned my business from that story I told. It kind of gave me perspective that you just never know what someone's going through. Even the people that are assholes to you, you
Yeah.
know, the people that we all, that, um, yeah, it's a quote that Sam Harris says, and he says that even the worst people, some terrorists and fucking everything,
Hmm.
right, were once a 4-year-old child.
Yeah.
And it makes you think, like, when somebody, and I mean, look, that's probably extreme what I just said, but
Yeah.
it's like, like, think about the person that's extremely mean to you or puts you down, or you always see them putting others down. You just never know what they're going through. And I think that's something that it gave me, is that the biggest thing that um, Elite Vitality's given me is perspective.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's a great answer. Um, what are, and kind of being able to tie this all together, all the information we've given, all the background story about you and kind of your hurdles and, just everything that you've given. What are kind of your three biggest tips for upcoming trainers, aspiring business people, people that are trying to step their foot in here? And like, for me, it's something that I think that, that story about your friend, the guy that you helped, self-awareness is huge. I think it's something that understanding what you're meant to do and not trying to be something that you're not. I think we've all struggled with this because we all want something and we all want status and we all want to make change. We all want to help people. We all want to get that emotional reaction from making change. So, it's important to know, be self-aware and understand that, like, knowing what you should be doing when you should be doing it. And that's, something that I've gotten from this whole thing and gotten from, because I question myself, and I've taken your tips and all the stuff that I've learned from Elite Vitality, and it's kind of given me the confidence that I knew I had. And like for a while, I questioned myself, and there was a lot going on, obviously with the business, and like, um, you know, so I think it's important to hear your tips and kind of for those people and just go down that route. So we'll go there.
Yeah, I think like one of them is like the very first one. I think people, my wish for everyone is to live an examined life, right? So to spend time with yourself, and this is through, I'm a big meditator. I mean, you don't have to meditate, but I think, learning more about yourself is an extremely important tool to add to the tool belt, which is probably not what you're going to hear for upcoming trainers. People are going to say, like, you probably, a lot of people would say different answers, but I think that's one that, honestly, I've rubbed shoulders with some of the best in the industry. I've been lucky enough to meet a fair few people that are doing pretty well, and that's the one thing that they all have, right? It's that they're conscious,
Mhm.
right? They have the ability to question themselves and almost emotionally regulate themselves, which is extremely important. So that's probably number one. Number two is don't neglect business. You've got to understand cash flow. You've got to understand performance, so KPIs, how to track metrics and use those to make decisions. Um, Building a brand, like all of these are foundational things that if you are a business owner and you don't know how to do them, or you haven't spent time on them, it's going to be really, really hard for you to create sustainable success without those things. So that's probably the second tip is, make sure that you're spending time not just upskilling yourself as a trainer with your craft, but make sure that you're upskilling yourself as a business owner as well, because that allows you to make a greater impact. You can't out science a horrible knowledge on business. You
Yeah.
just can't.
Yeah.
And tip number three is um, dream, man. Like,
Yeah.
don't limit yourself to what you think is right or what you think society says that you should do, or don't try to build the business that you think's going to work because everybody else is doing that. Like, you got to go out there and you got to create something that you really truly believe in. And when you can knock down those barriers that are holding you in, and ruining your creativity and taking away your ambition, um, if you can break down those walls, that's where success is. That's where true innovation happens, and that's where you can really start to enjoy it, because when there is no barriers, you can take it wherever you want, and when you have the confidence to do so, it's extremely fun, man. And that's what business should be. Business should be fun. Business should be enjoyable. It should be creative. It should be innovative, and that's what I think. I think a lot of people, their limiting self-belief stop them from actually creating something that they truly believe in and that truly fulfills them, because they believe they have to do what's right or what's working at the time.
Yeah.
And it's just simply not the case.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome information, because that's, I think the dreaming part especially has been something that, and it's hard because, in fitness, there's only so many ways to, um, you know, create innovation, but like, thinking outside the box and not falling victim to what everybody else is doing is huge. And I've done it myself. I'm sure that everybody who's been to a point in their life has fallen victim to being like, oh, do I really think I can do this? Or can I actually get to this point? I've never seen anybody do this. So like, is it even right? Is there a reason for it? Dreaming is a huge one, and like just being there and understanding that it takes time, and like, um, you're able to do things more and more as you gain the confidence and build a foundation, instead of just like running at things and just trying to spearhead it and take too much out. Like understanding the principles and, building principles for yourself and then changing the methods as you go, is what's going to create success. And that's what I've taken the most out of, Elite Vitality, is like building principles of business and then iterations, as Jordan says. I had the podcast with Jordan not too long ago, and he was talking about iterations and like being able to develop new methods and develop new things and just make it better each time. But as long as your principles are the same and what you're trying to achieve, then, everything is just going to grow on that, and your methods are just going to get better. All right. So where can people reach you? Where can they get more information? Is Steel on the Walls done with? Like, you guys are done taking in people for that?
We got a couple days, so depending on when you release this,
Right, probably.
but I mean,
when's the next one? Do you know?
So the next one, we're not too sure when the next live one's going to be, but we are going to package this up and sell it at some point. We're not too sure, but keep an eye out, because the one thing with Steel on the Walls is you do get lifetime access, so you can take it as many times as you want once you've done it once. So do keep an eye out, but you can reach out to me and find me on Instagram at Kyle Traynor, or we've got Elite Vitality Mastery, which is the business page. And that's probably it, man. Like, I mean, I'm not too big on socials just yet. But I'm working at it. So if you want to come on over and have a bit of a chat, feel free to.
Yeah. And, reach out to him. He's got some good stuff. He's the Steel on the Walls was a great concept, and it's a great course. It gives a lot of information. And there's 6 live courses, right? There's 3 like classes, and there's 3 labs essentially.
Yeah, so three modules. That each module goes for a week, and then there's 2 live lectures for each module. So
Awesome.
it's pretty intensive, man. Like we want people to step up. Like we want this to be accelerated learning, and make sure that people are really applying it in real time. So it is quite intensive, but I mean that's what I really enjoy about it. That's why I think it's a great concept.
Yeah, awesome. And for the trainers that do listen, 100%, if you guys want to take that next step and kind of strengthen your business from the ground up and build a foundation, these are the guys to see. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Kyle, thank you for coming on. 100% appreciate it. Do it again soon, hopefully. And I will talk to you guys next time. If you guys have any questions about Kyle or, the stuff that I'm doing, reach out, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.